They said it was just one ship. It's a lonely silhouette against the stars. They laughed until the countdown ended. Out until the first blast. And by the time the 4th minute passed, they weren't laughing anymore. When they were gone, when the silent thunder emerged, the stars had witnessed many conquests, but none quite like what Admiral Dex planned for the small blue world hanging in the void before his fleet. The Krelthan Empire stretched across 17 star systems, and their military might was legendary throughout the galaxy. With skin like polished obsidian and eyes that glowed amber in the darkness of space, the Krelthans had never met a species they couldn't dominate within a standard galactic cycle. Dex stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Dominator, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. His third fleet consisted of 47 warships, each one capable of reducing a planet's surface to molten glass. The fleet had been traveling for 3 months to reach this unremarkable system that the locals called Sol, home to a species that called themselves humans. The intelligence reports painted humans as barely more than evolved animals. They had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. Their weapons were primitive chemical explosives and basic energy projectors, and their ships were crude metal constructs held together with hope and determination. The Galactic Council had classified them as a Class 7 civilization, meaning they posed no threat to established powers. Admiral called out Navigation Officer Zek from his station. We've reached optimal position. The human homeworld is directly ahead, approximately 2 million kilometers. Dex nodded slowly, his amber eyes reflecting the light from the tactical displays. Begin standard intimidation protocol. Send a message to their leadership. Tell them the Krelthan Empire claims sovereignty over this system. No? They have 1 rotation of their planet to surrender unconditionally. Communications Officer Nira's fingers danced across her console. Message transmitted on all human frequencies, Admiral. We should receive their response within moments. The bridge fell silent, except for the low hum of the ship's engines and the soft beeping of monitoring systems. Dex had performed this same ritual dozens of times before. First came the terrified pleas, then desperate offers of tribute, and finally complete capitulation. It was almost boring in its predictability, Admiral Nira said, her voice carrying a note of confusion. I'm receiving multiple responses from the human world, but they seem unusual. Explain, sir. Instead of surrender terms, they're sending us data packets. Scientific information, mathematical theorems, artistic works, music compositions. It's as if they're trying to show us their culture rather than negotiate. Eyes narrowed. This was unexpected. Most species either cowered or made futile threats when faced with Krelthan power. These humans seemed to be doing neither. Are there any military communications? None, sir. No threats, no mobilization orders, no defensive preparations. Wait. ... Nira paused, her expression puzzled. I'm detecting a single transmission from what appears to be their military command. It's very brief. Display it. The main screen flickered to life, showing a middle-aged human female in a simple blue uniform. Her skin was darker than most humans. Dex had seen in the intelligence files, and her dark eyes held an unsettling calmness. When she spoke, her voice was steady and clear. To the Krelthan fleet now approaching Earth, I am Admiral Sarah Chen, representing the United Earth Defense Forces. We have received your message and understand your intentions. However, we must respectfully decline your offer of subjugation. Hope you will reconsider your position. We do not wish to fight, but we will not surrender. End transmission. The screen went dark, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Dex felt his jaw clench. In all his years of conquest, no species had ever simply refused his demands without either begging for mercy or issuing hollow threats. This human's calm rejection was almost insulting. Tactical Officer Grix Dex commanded, "What are their defensive capabilities?" Grix studied his displays carefully. "Sir, I'm detecting minimal military activity. They have perhaps 24 orbital platforms with what appear to be particle beam weapons, several hundred small patrol craft, and maybe 50 larger vessels that could be classified as frigates. Nothing that could threaten even one of our destroyers. And yet they refuse to surrender, Dex mused aloud. Perhaps they don't understand what they're facing. Begin charging primary weapons. Target their orbital installations. Once they see the power of Krelthan military technology, they'll reconsider their position. Weapons charging, Admiral Grix reported. Estimate 30 seconds to full power. When everything changed. Sir. Sensor operator Yex called out, his voice rising in alarm. I'm detecting a massive energy signature approaching from the far side of their star. Distance. 12 million kilometers and closing fast. On screen. Dex ordered. The main display shifted to show deep space near the human star. At first there was nothing but the usual stellar radiation and cosmic background. Then, like a ghost materializing from the void, a ship appeared. It was unlike anything in the Krelthan databases. The vessel was enormous, easily twice the size of Vex's flagship, but its design defied conventional understanding. Instead of the angular, aggressive lines of a warship, it seemed to flow like liquid metal. Its surface appeared to shift and change, sometimes solid black, sometimes reflecting the stars like a mirror, and occasionally becoming translucent enough to see through to the other side.
Wow, what in the void is that thing? Tactical Officer Grix
whispered. Sensors can't get a lock on it, Yex reported, his voice tight with confusion. The readings keep changing. Sometimes it shows as solid matter, sometimes as pure energy, sometimes as ... nothing at all. Yex leaned forward in his command. Chair, what's its heading? Direct intercept course, Admiral? Estimated arrival at our position in 47 minutes. Weapon signatures? None detectable, sir. No missile pods, no energy cannon ports, no defensive systems. Oda. It doesn't even appear to have shields. This made no sense. The humans had sent a single ship, one that showed no conventional weapons, against an entire Krelthan fleet. Either they were completely insane, or they knew something that Thix didn't. The Admiral's instincts, honed by decades of warfare, were sending warning signals through his mind. Communications hailed that vessel. Nira worked at her console for several minutes before shaking her head. No response, Admiral. I'm transmitting. On all standard frequencies, but it's as if the ship isn't there. Wait. ... I'm detecting something unusual. What now? Sir, there's a low-frequency transmission coming from the ship. It's not directed at us specifically, but it's broadcasting in all directions. It's music. Music. Yes, sir. Human music. Multiple pieces playing simultaneously, but somehow harmonizing. It's beautiful, but also... Nira paused, searching. 4 words. Sad, sir. Mournful, like a funeral song. Thix felt an unexpected chill run down his spine. In Krelthan culture, warriors sang funeral songs before battles they didn't expect to survive. Were the humans doing the same thing? Admiral Yex called out urgently. The ship has changed course, no longer heading for our formation. Where is it going? It's just stopped, sir. Dead in space, approximately 5 million kilometers away. Just sitting there. The bridge fell silent again as everyone stared at the main screen. The strange human ship hung motionless in the void, its surface continuing to shift and flow like a living thing. It made no threatening moves, sent no demands, issued no challenges. It simply existed, and somehow that was more terrifying than any weapon they had ever faced. Admiral Communications Officer Nira said quietly, I'm receiving another transmission. From the human world, display it. The screen again showed Admiral Chen, but this time she wasn't alone. Behind her stood dozens of other humans in various uniforms and civilian clothing. They represented different ages, races, and backgrounds, but they all shared the same calm, resolute expression. Admiral Vex Chen began, and the fact that she knew his name sent another chill through the Krelthan commander. The ship you now see before you is called the Silent Thunder. It carries within it something that no technology can measure and no weapon can defeat. It carries the hopes, dreams, fears, and determination of every human being who has ever lived. We call it the sum of human experience. She paused, and when she continued, her voice carried a weight that seemed to echo across the void between the ships. You see weakness where we see strength. You see primitive technology where we see unlimited potential. You see a species to be conquered where we see a family worth protecting. The Silent Thunder is not a weapon in any conventional sense. It is a mirror. It will show you exactly what you bring to this encounter. If you come in peace, you will find peace. If you come with conquest in your heart, the transmission ended without completing the sentence, leaving the threat hanging. In the space between stars, Dex stared at the motionless human ship and felt something he hadn't experienced in decades of conquest: uncertainty. His fleet was more powerful, his weapons more advanced, his warriors more experienced. By every measure that mattered in warfare, the Krelthans should win easily, so why did he feel like he was about to make the biggest mistake of his life? All ships, he commanded, his voice steady despite his inner turmoil, maintain battle formation. Charge all weapons. If the humans want to play games with strange ships and cryptic messages, they'll learn that the Krelthan Empire doesn't bluff. But even as he gave the order, Admiral Vex couldn't shake the feeling that the humans weren't bluffing either. That terrified him more than he cared to admit. The attack began at exactly 14:33, Galactic Standard Time. Admiral Dex had given his fleet 30 minutes to study the Silent Thunder, hoping his tactical officers could identify some weaknesses in the strange human vessel. They found nothing useful. The ship continued to hover motionless in space, its surface flowing like liquid mercury, completely ignoring all scans and communication attempts. Admiral Tactical Officer Grix reported, all ships report weapons charged and ready. Targeting. Solutions locked on the human vessel. Vex nodded grimly. Whatever game the humans were playing, it was time to end it. All ships, commence firing. Concentrate all firepower on that vessel. I want it reduced to atoms. The void erupted in light and fury. 47 Krelthan warships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Plasma cannons, particle beams, graviton, torpedoes, and quantum disruptors all focused on a single point in space where the Silent Thunder waited. The combined firepower was enough to crack a moon in half. For 3 seconds, the human ship disappeared in a sphere of pure energy as the Krelthan weapons struck home. The sensors went blind from the electromagnetic interference. When the displays cleared, Vex expected to see nothing but dispersing vapor and debris. Instead, the Silent Thunder hung exactly where it had been before, completely unharmed. Impossible, Grix breathed. Direct hits with everything we have, and it doesn't even have a scratch shields, Vex demanded. None detected, sir. Our weapons hit the hull directly. Should have vaporized that ship instantly. Dex felt his confidence beginning to crack. He'd never encountered defensive technology that could withstand concentrated fire from an entire fleet without showing any protective barriers. Fire again. Full sustained barrage. Once more, the Krelthon fleet opened fire. This time they maintained the attack for a full minute, pouring enough energy into the target zone to sterilize a planet's surface. The Silent Thunder absorbed it, all without reaction, like a stone accepting rainfall. That's when the strangeness began. Admiral Sensor Operator Yex called out, his voice tight with confusion. I'm detecting unusual readings from our own ships. Explain. Sir, energy patterns throughout the fleet are fluctuating. Power distribution seems normal, but there are these resonance patterns, like harmonics, but in our ship systems instead of sound waves. On the main screen, the Silent Thunder began to change. Its flowing surface started to pulse with gentle light, and the music that had been broadcasting from it grew stronger. But it was no longer mournful. Now it carried notes of determination, hope, and something that sounded almost like compassion. What's happening to our systems? Vex demanded. Before anyone could answer, the lights on the bridge began to dim and brighten in rhythm with the pulsing of the human ship. The tactical displays flickered, showing impossible readings. Energy levels throughout the Dominator started fluctuating wildly. Sir, Grix shouted over the growing hum of malfunctioning. Systems. I'm getting reports from the entire fleet. All ships are experiencing power anomalies. Weapons are cycling down on their own. Engines are reducing thrust without orders. Vex gripped his command chair as the bridge lighting began strobing in complex patterns. Override the systems. Manuel. Control. We're trying, Admiral, but the computers aren't responding to input. It's like something else is controlling them. On the main screen, the silent thunder began to move. Not forward or backward, but in a slow, graceful rotation that revealed previously hidden aspects of its design. Vex realized with growing horror that what he'd taken for flowing metal was actually something far more sophisticated. The ship's hull wasn't solid. At all, it was composed of billions of microscopic components that moved and shifted like a living organism. Sir Nira called out from communications, her voice filled with wonder and fear. I'm receiving a transmission from the human ship, but it's not coming through our communications array. It's coming through ... everything. Every system on the ship is somehow receiving the signal. On speakers. The voice filled the bridge, but it wasn't coming from the audio system. It seemed to emanate from the very walls, the deck plating, the control consoles themselves. It was a woman's voice, calm and clear, with an accent Dex couldn't identify. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Silent Thunder. Admiral Vex, you have fired upon a peaceful vessel twice without provocation. Under normal circumstances, this would be considered an act of war. Then why don't you fight back? Vex snarled into his communicator. Because fighting is not what the Silent Thunder was built for, Admiral. It was built to understand. And right now, it's trying to understand you. The pulsing light from the human ship grew brighter, and suddenly Vex felt something impossible happening. Memories that weren't his own began flooding his mind. He saw images of a blue-green world, of creatures that looked fragile but moved with surprising grace and determination. He felt emotions he'd never experienced before. Parents' love for a child. An artist's joy in creation, a teacher's satisfaction in sharing knowledge. Around the bridge, other Krelthan officers were staggering, clutching their heads as the same visions overwhelmed them. These weren't random images. They were carefully chosen moments that showed humanity at its best. Acts of kindness, sacrifice, creativity, and courage. The memories came with understanding, allowing the Krelthans to not just see what humans did, but to feel why they did it. Hey, what are you doing to us? Dex gasped. The Silent Thunder is powered by human consciousness. Captain Vasquez's voice explained, still emanating from every surface around them. 12,000 volunteers have linked their minds to this ship. You're feeling what they feel, seeing what they've seen, understanding what it means to be human. The visions shifted, showing the other side of human nature. They saw wars, suffering, betrayal, and cruelty.
Ow!
But even in these dark moments, there was something else: hope. No matter how terrible things became, humans never stopped believing they could be better. They never stopped trying to protect those they loved. You came here to conquer us, Vasquez continued, but conquest requires an enemy. Silent Thunder is showing you that we are not your enemy. We are not even that different from you. New images flooded Dex's mind, Krelthan memories this time, but viewed through human eyes. He saw his own species' history of expansion and domination, but now he understood how it looked to those being conquered. He felt the fear, desperation, and loss that his campaigns had caused. For the first time in his life, Admiral Vex experienced empathy for his victims. The sensory assault lasted only minutes, but it felt like hours. When it finally ended, Dex found himself on his knees on the bridge deck, tears streaming down his obsidian cheeks. Around him, his officers were in similar states of emotional collapse. Sir Grix whispered, his voice broken, "Our weapons are completely offline. All of them, fleet-wide. Engines? Minimal power only. We're maintaining life support and basic systems, but we can't maneuver or fight." Grix slowly pulled himself back into his command chair, feeling as if he'd aged decades in the span of minutes. On the main screen, the Silent Thunder continued its gentle rotation, no longer seeming alien and threatening. Now it looked almost beautiful, like a work of art floating in the void. Admiral Vex, Captain Vasquez's voice spoke again, but this Time it came only from the communications system. Your fleet is unharmed. Your crews are safe. Your weapons have been disabled, but only temporarily. In approximately 6 hours, all your systems will return to normal function. Why? Dex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Why didn't you destroy us? We came here to conquer your world. "'Cause destruction solves nothing," Vasquez replied. "The Silent Thunder was designed to defend Earth, yes, but not through violence. It defends us by showing potential enemies what we really are. Some species see our memories and decide we're worth protecting instead of conquering. Others see our compassion and realize they don't want to be the monsters in someone else's story." Bex looked around his bridge at his stunned officers. In their amber eyes, he saw the same confusion and revelation that he was feeling. Everything they'd believed about conquest, about strength, about their place in the galaxy had been challenged. "In the span of minutes, what happens now?" he asked. "That's up to you, Admiral. The Silent Thunder has shown you who we are and what we're capable of. You've felt our capacity for both love and war, creation and destruction. You've seen that we're not the primitive animals your intelligence reports claimed. The question is, what do you choose to do with that knowledge?" The communication ended, leaving the bridge in contemplative silence. Outside, the rest of the Krelthan fleet hung motionless in space, their crews undoubtedly going through the same emotional and philosophical crisis that Dex was experiencing. For 40 years, he had been the sword of the Krelthan Empire, bringing alien worlds under their dominion through superior firepower and ruthless efficiency. He had never questioned the rightness of conquest or considered the perspectives of those he defeated. Now, with human memories still echoing in his mind, he found himself questioning everything he'd ever believed. The timer on his console showed that exactly 4 minutes had passed since the first shots were fired. 4 minutes to disable an entire fleet without firing a shot in return. 4 minutes to change the course of galactic history. And somehow, Admiral X suspected that the most difficult part was yet to come. After the thunder 6 hours later, Admiral X stood alone in his private quarters. Staring out at the blue marble that was Earth, his fleet hung motionless around him, waiting for his orders. The ship systems had reactivated exactly as Captain Vasquez promised, but none of his crew seemed eager to resume their attack. The experience with the Silent Thunder had changed something fundamental in all of them. Soft chime indicated someone requesting entry to his quarters. "Come," he called out. Communications Officer Nira entered, her amber eyes still showing the emotional strain of their encounter with human consciousness. "Admiral, we're receiving a communication request from the Silent Thunder. Captain Vasquez is asking permission to come aboard for face-to-face negotiations." Bex turned from the viewport. A human wants to board a Krelthan warship. It's either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. Given what we've experienced, I'm not sure there's a difference anymore. The Admiral considered this. He thought he knew about warfare, diplomacy, and interspecies relations had been turned upside down in the past few hours. Perhaps it was time to try something completely different. "Grant permission. Have her escorted to Conference Room 7. And Nira, make sure she's treated as an honored guest, not a prisoner, sir." 20 minutes later, Vex found himself sitting across a table from the most remarkable human he'd ever encountered. Captain Elena Vasquez was smaller than he'd expected, probably no taller than his shoulder, with graying hair and lines around her dark eyes that spoke of years spent making difficult decisions. She wore a simple blue uniform with minimal decorations, but she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced impossible odds and prevailed. "Admiral Vex," she said, extending her hand in the human gesture of greeting. After a moment's hesitation, he took it, surprised by the warmth and firmness of her grip. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." "Captain Vasquez," he replied, settling into his chair. "I'll admit, this is not how I expected this day to proceed." She smiled, and Vex was struck by how the expression transformed her entire face. "Phew. First contacts go according to plan. The Silent Thunder was designed specifically to ensure they go better than they might otherwise. The ship your people built. It's unlike anything in our databases. How is such technology possible?" Vasquez leaned back in her chair, choosing her words carefully. The silent thunder represents 20 years of human innovation, but not the kind you might expect. We didn't focus on bigger weapons or stronger armor. Instead, we asked a different question. What if the greatest weapon against violence was understanding? Explain. The ship's core isn't a fusion reactor or antimatter containment system. It's a consciousness matrix housing the linked minds of 12,000 human volunteers. Scientists, artists, teachers, parents, children, soldiers, poets, people from every walk of life who wanted to contribute to humanity's defense not through violence, but through connection. Max felt a chill run down his spine. You put living minds inside a warship. Not exactly. Volunteers' bodies remain safely on Earth in specialized medical facilities. But their consciousness, their memories, their emotions, their capacity for empathy, all of that is channeled through the silent thunder. When we encounter a potential threat, the ship doesn't fight back. Instead, it creates a bridge between minds, allowing true communication to occur. The visions we experienced, ... double quotes, those were real human memories, Admiral. Moments of joy, sorrow, triumph, and failure that shaped who we are as a species. The silent thunder selected experiences that would help you understand us, and in doing so, help you understand yourselves. Nex was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. Your people volunteer to have their minds placed at risk for strangers they've never met. The volunteers knew the dangers when they signed up. Some of them are veterans who've seen war firsthand and wanted to find a better way to protect their families. Others are simply people who believe that understanding is stronger than hatred. Vasquez paused. What they all share is the conviction that showing someone who you really are is more powerful than showing them what you can destroy. And if we had refused to listen, if we had continued attacking, Vasquez's expression grew serious. The silent thunder would have defended itself in Earth. But Admiral, you felt what 12,000 human minds can do when focused on understanding and empathy. Imagine what they could accomplish if focused on survival and protection. The implied threat was clear, but it didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a statement of fact, delivered with regret rather than aggression. Your species fascinates me, Captain, Dex admitted. In 40 years of conquest, I've never encountered anything like what happened today. Most species either surrender immediately or fight to the death. You did neither. We chose a third option, Vasquez replied. We chose to communicate. Dex stood and walked back to the viewport, gazing out at Earth. My empire stretches across 17 star systems. We've conquered dozens of species, brought order to chaotic regions of space, established trade networks and communication grids that benefit billions. We tell ourselves that conquest serves the greater good, and now I find myself wondering if there might be better ways to achieve those same goals. He turned back to face her. The experience your ship put us through, it wasn't just visions of human life. It showed us our own actions through the eyes of those we've conquered. I felt their fear, their desperation, their loss. For the first time, I understood the true cost of our expansion. Vasquez nodded slowly. That's the power of empathy, Admiral. Once you truly understand someone else's perspective, it becomes much harder to harm them. But it also becomes harder to lead, Dex said. How can I command a fleet knowing what I know now? How can I return to the Empire and report that a single human ship defeated 47 Krelthan warships without firing a shot? You could start by not thinking of it as a defeat, Vasquez suggested. What happened today wasn't a battle. It was a first step toward something better. What do you mean? Admiral, your empire has achieved remarkable things through conquest and domination. But imagine what you could achieve through cooperation and partnership. The Krelthan military skills, combined with human innovation and empathy, could create something unprecedented in galactic history. Dex stared at her. You're suggesting an alliance? Between Earth and the Krelthan Empire? I'm suggesting that there's more than one way to bring order to the galaxy. Instead of forcing compliance through fear, you could inspire cooperation. Through example, instead of conquest, you could offer partnership. The Admiral returned to his chair, his mind racing. The Krelthan High Command would never accept such a proposal. They see strength only in domination. And maybe it's time for new leadership in the Krelthan Empire, Vasquez said quietly. Leadership that understands that true strength comes from lifting others up, not tearing them down. The words hung in the air between them, carrying implications that both understood perfectly. Vex was being offered more than an alliance. He was being offered a chance to transform everything he'd ever known about power and leadership. The silent thunder showed me many things, he said finally. But the most powerful vision wasn't of human triumph or tragedy. It was of human children playing together, laughing without fear. When I saw that, I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen Krelthan children play with such joy. What do you think that means? It means we've forgotten something important in our drive for dominance. We've forgotten what we're supposed to be protecting. Thix looked directly into Vasquez's eyes. Captain, if I were to propose this alliance to my government, what would Earth offer in return? Everything, she replied without hesitation. Our scientific knowledge, our artistic achievements, our innovations in sustainable development and peaceful conflict resolution. But most importantly, we would offer friendship. Real partnership between equals, not the submission of one species to another. And the silent thunder would become a guardian for all peaceful species in our region of space. Protector that defends through understanding rather than violence. Vex was quiet for several minutes, weighing possibilities that had never occurred to him before. Finally, he activated his communicator. Fleet Command, this is Admiral Vex. Stand down all weapons. Establish protective formation around Earth. We are no longer here as conquerors. The response came quickly. Sir, are you under duress? Negative. I am exactly where I choose to be, doing exactly what needs to be done. He closed the communication and looked back at Vasquez. Captain, I cannot speak for my entire empire, but I can speak for this fleet. We accept your offer of alliance. More than that, we embrace it. Vasquez smiled again, and this time Vex understood why humans valued that expression so highly. It represented hope, joy, and the promise of better things to come. Admiral, she said, I think this is the beginning of something extraordinary. Outside the viewport, Earth continued its slow rotation, no longer a target for conquest, but a beacon of new possibilities. Silent thunder drifted peacefully among the Krelthan ships, its hull reflecting starlight like a mirror showing the galaxy what it could become. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Vex looked forward to going home not as a conqueror, returning with spoils of war, but as an ambassador carrying the promise of a better future for all species willing to reach across the void and shake hands with their neighbors among the stars. The age of conquest was ending. The age of cooperation had begun. And it had all started with a single human ship that chose to fight with understanding rather than weapons, forever changing the galaxy in just 4 minutes that no one would ever forget.